the room, and if you are very freshly minted, huge congratulations and well done, because it's a bit of a task to get things going. What I've done for us this afternoon is I've just put together basically a little bit of a slide deck that we're going to be able to kind of work through, but very, very kind of relaxed about the whole thing. Oh, let me just move that back over. There we go. Whenever I'm doing my training, I try and make things as flexible as possible. There we go. That's better. Because I just think it's important that you kind of work with your audience. And in an ideal world, you'd be able to go in and you'd be able to get a pre-training assessment done.
Darren, excuse me, Darren. Is it just me or I'm not able to hear you? Sorry.
Anyone else hear me? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Mary. Yeah. So I always make sure that I do send in advance a kind of a pre-training assessment and ask whoever it is I'm training to try and basically to fill it in, to give me an idea of how to pitch things. Invariably, I find that doesn't always happen. So quite often you'll send things off and some people will fill it in, some people won't, and it's slightly annoying, but that's the way it goes. Just to get us started, on the slide that you can just see just at the corner there, you can see there's a bit.ly etocrm4, which will give you a copy of these slides. Okay, so if you go to that bit.ly, you'll get your own copy of these slides to keep, which is just, there's basically loads and loads of advice in there from myself and other people. Is that better now, Mary? Yep. Let me just pop it in there. So it's http bit.ly / what do we say? It's etocrm4. Boom. That's not it. Forgot the S. Apologies. Always do that. That should do it. Or maybe not. Oh, I know what I've done. Good grief. What a crazy man. Been a long day. I've been out in the sun. That's my problem. Being ginger, it's not a good idea. Okay, so that will give you a copy of the slides, obviously. And this again is a template from Paula at Slides Mania, and Paula's absolutely fantastic. There's no point spending hours reinventing the wheel when she's already created such amazing resources for us. So just to start off with, actually, let's just go back one. Let's go. We go to this one. So bit.ly, we're just going to go in here and have a little bit of fun with it, because I think it's important when you're setting out with some new people that you don't necessarily know. It may be the case that they don't know each other either. Just because you maybe go and visit another school, there's no guarantee that they all know each other. So that link will take you to another slide deck, which looks a little bit like, well, it's got a picture of me on it, basically. And all I want you to do, just to start off with, just so we get to know each other a little bit, I can see people on there already. Basically, find a slide, Google your first name and glamour shot, and then add the first image result onto the slides, just to kind of break the ice a little bit and kind of get people using the technology as quickly as possible. I always try and start with a little bit of an icebreaker of this kind, whether it's a where in the world are you or where would you rather be is a nice one as well. I just thought we'd go with glamour shots today because I was feeling glamorous. There we go. Let's see, we've got an anonymous snake there, which is Chanel. And we've got an anonymous liger. Wow, exotic. Always nice. I didn't know how. Oh, wow, that's brilliant. Look at that. Fantastic. Do have a look at other people's on their slides as well. That's quite special, Chanel. Marvelous. Carolyn, that's a great photo. And it really, it's just an opportunity to get people looking at, okay, this is, some of the different ways that we can bring information into a shared slide deck, but obviously I'm demonstrating at the same time that I can see what everybody's doing. So if you like, we're living and breathing the collaborative experience. So I can see that Kelly's working away on this one. Nobody's on slide 4. And then we've got Carolyn, who's come in from Illinois there with some fantastic earrings. And then Chanel from County Down with, I think, possibly the world's weirdest face mask, but quite appropriate at the moment. So, you know, face masks at the ready and all that kind of thing. I love doing things like this just to break the ice a little bit. I think it's really important that we kind of vary it up and lead from the front and show people the kind of thing that we're working towards. So this deck itself now is basically over to you guys. Each one of these has got different answers and different sections based on some of the questions that were asked this time, some of the questions were last time. So if anyone's got any particular preferences in terms of any of those choices, do let me know. Feel free to unmute as well. There's only like 4 of us, so we don't have to stay on mute if we don't want to. But if anyone's got any particular preferences, obviously, because I'm keen to make the most of this time for you guys more than me just talking. So, Kelly, anything in particular you want to start with?
Let's see. How about teaching privacy? About virtual.
Okay, good stuff. Oh, let me just let other people in. Bear with me. Okay, so we go virtual. So again, just the slide deck. Okay, oops, that didn't work. There we go. So virtual training. Obviously, it's most likely at the moment that trainings are going to be done virtually, but prior to COVID, prior to COVID, really weren't happening very much. So quite a lot of people have been asking really for advice on virtual training sessions, and more now kind of a hybrid or a high flex training session as well, with some people at home, some people in the classroom, particularly when I've been doing things like the EdTech demonstrator programs here in the UK. So the thing to bear in mind really is when you're running a virtual session, very much like when you're teaching a virtual lesson, I think it's important to remember that you're effectively a guest in their home or their environment. So you've got to be a little bit flexible to what's going on. You've got no control over what's going on there. But if you can get information in advance, I think it's really important to. So try and find out prior to a training what people have got access to, what kind of devices they're likely to be using. You know, are they going to be on iPads? Are they on Chromebooks? Will some people be on phones? Will they be sharing a device? Will they all have their own? Because obviously that impacts on the kind of activities that you might want to do. I think it's also important that you make sure that you've got a variety of ways of people accessing that information to take away, because obviously you can't give them, you know, a memory stick, you can't give them a printout or anything like that. So across the 4 rooms today, we've tried to do it in a different variety of ways. So obviously what I've done is I've given you a copy link so that you can make your own copies of the slides. I think Katie's collated a wait clip so that you can get all of her resources that way. I think Kat's doing it slightly differently. So we've tried to kind of vary it up a little bit. There's no right or wrong way. It's just whatever you prefer and whatever's easiest. But like I say, important to check what people have got access to. The last thing you want to do is set something up and say, right, if you access this, you'll get all the resources from today, and then find that they can't access it. And equally, you know, if you're going and training on site, do exactly the same thing. Find out, you know, first of all, you know, when you get there, get the Wi-Fi code and everything else, but also try all of the websites that you're planning on using during the training. I always get there early, make sure they're working. If they're working on schools' devices, try and find out in advance whether there are any filters in place or any proxy servers and things like that. But also as well, send through to wherever you're going as a venue any sites that you think you're likely to be using so that they can make sure they're not blocked. And then really it's about how you set up, because you've got to be comfortable as well. And particularly, you know, if you're working from home, you've got to produce, you know, a professional environment without distractions, everything else. I'm quite fortunate. I'm not in the office that you can see. I'm not that fortunate, but I am in my conservatory. You know, I'm able to shut the door, shut the rest of the house away. I've got my microphones. I've got several screens set up. I've got a graphics tablet if I need it. So I've got lots of different ways of being able to demonstrate things however I need to. So your setup's important, and make sure you've got everything to hand and you don't need to kind of wander off and all that kind of thing. I think it's a really good idea as well. And it's not product placement or anything, but I have a Google Home Mini, which I use, and I just use that for, you know, okay, Google, set a timer for 1 minute for me. Shut up, don't do it. Because, you know, just to help you keep the time while you're working through. And I think that's really useful. Okay. And remember that, you know, potentially these are private sessions. You might be working for yourself. You might be working for your schools. You might be doing something kind of privately that you've been asked to do. But you want to make sure that you're comfortable and that the people you're working with are comfortable as well. And it may be that you need to set them up with accounts as well. So that's the other thing to find out is, do they have an account that they can use, or do you need to set them up on your training domain with test accounts? So I just have student 1, student 2, student 3. I think I've got 25 accounts set up that I can just give people an open access to use for the purpose of training if they don't have their own account, or if they're scared of using their own account and they don't want to kind of mess it all around and chop and change things and change settings on their actual accounts. Okay. Caroline, choose another one.
How about personal growth?
Personal growth. Well, I did a lot of that because I'm 6'5". But basically, that's Google doing my 1 minute timer for me. Bless it. So how have I benefited from being a trainer? I think firstly, I've changed roles and subject. So I'm a language teacher by trade, completely self-taught in terms of the EdTech side of things. I used to be SLT. I was a school leader for 10 years. And went away to do a headship and absolutely hated it. Came back in, kind of back further down the ladder again, and kind of threw myself into the ed technology world and have absolutely loved it and thrived. So it's given me a lot of opportunities that I wouldn't have had otherwise. Aside from COVID, which was brilliant, I was already like brilliant from some perspectives, not from all of them, just to clarify. I'd already started to build up a bit of a personal learning network on Twitter and things like that. But I genuinely would not have got through the last year without the people that I've met online through Global and GEG UK and things like that, and through Twitter and Edu-Twitter and everything else. So that's been great. And that's given me opportunities. I've been able to go and do and hold training in international schools. I was very fortunate just before COVID to get to go over to Vienna, to the Vienna International School, and do a whole day's boot camp for support staff. Obviously, the work I've done with GlobalGEG, I've delivered at conferences and summits in the US and in Canada. Some of those free, some of them paid. I've been able to get into coaching my colleagues, which I love doing because I've been able to get into the classroom with them in a non-judgmental kind of way. I've obviously been able to do some private work as well. And then everything that I've been doing enabled me to put in a successful application for Innovator for the first virtual Innovator Academy for VIA 20, which is where my EdTech buddy came from, which is my self-paced PD Innovator project, which you are very, very welcome to check out if you haven't done so already. So there's loads and loads of benefits from being a trainer, as well as the benefits to your own teaching, your own level of experimentation, creativity, risk-taking, but also experiences from around the world, you know. And it's great to be able to talk to students about, you know, well, I was in Vienna last week at an international school. What was that like, sir? Well, let's have a look. And we'll get up Google Earth and we'll have a look at the school. And they're like, wow, that's amazing. And then we'll talk about a few bits and pieces like that. But then also, well, what kind of struggles are they finding and what kind of things have they got accessible to them? So it's really interesting to open the world up to students at the same time. Okay. Chanel, go on. Your go. You're on mute though.
There's a good start. Developing skills.
Developing skills. Okay. Oh, that's not the right one. Where are we? There we go. So, pre-training is really important. I think practicing and trying it out on a few people is a really good idea. I didn't get that luxury. I just got a phone call from Dean Stokes one day. He said, "Do you want to come to Aberdeen and do some training for me?" And I walked in to the airport and he picked me up, and then we went off to a school in Aberdeen, and we just walked in the room. He said, "Right, you're in that room. I'm next door if there's any problems." And that was it. Luckily, there weren't any problems, but I'll be honest, I was absolutely bricking it. Pre-training, I think, is really important. Like I said at the start, get your pre-assessment done if you can, and really try and impress on whoever it is you're liaising with the importance of that pre-training, because it really does enable you to tailor your sessions to the right audience. The last thing you want to do is prepare a load of stuff and then people go, "Whoa, I know all of this," or "Good grief, I'm nowhere near that. I just want to know how to turn the computer on and off." So I have a pre-training thing that's just basically it's a Google form that uses the sliding scale. So on a basis of like 0 being not at all and 5 being totally confident, how do you rate yourself with these various different things? And I keep it quite simple. So it's things like adding images to slides, things like creating a simple Google form. I normally include things like obviously changing headers and footers in docs. So something general that kind of fits everybody, and see how they get on with that, and just see what the levels of confidence are. Because I think that gives you a good guide as to how much people have explored the tools themselves, and then you can kind of go from there. And then on the day, like I said at the outset, I think it's really beneficial to be very flexible and to go with what's important to your audience, whether that's in person or whether it's virtual. I always say, if we start here and you guys find this really important, then we can go into much more detail with it. However, if you think, yeah, that's great and it's flashy, but we're never going to use it, we'll focus on something else. So it's a good idea to do little pit stops. Depends on how long your training is going to be. So if you're doing a whole day long boot camp, that's great, because you get the opportunity usually at break time to have a little bit of a chat with people. Right, how have you found it so far? What have you used it for? Same again over lunch. And then you can kind of play around with it. Always trying to leave, if I'm doing a whole day, I normally leave about half an hour, which I just call the playground, built into the day. And it purely is for that, right, who's got some ideas, who's got something they want to dive into in more detail as a playground. But if we end up going down a rabbit hole into something else, then the playground can be taken up with that extra time. So you don't lose anything else as a result of it. And then after the event, I always try and make sure, firstly, that I get feedback before I leave. And sometimes people do that immediately, or sometimes I'll just email them a couple of days later and ask them for some feedback. But I do always give them my email address. I always give them my social media handles as well, because I like to try and stay in contact with the people I've trained. Normally, because I've fired loads and loads of stuff at them, and kind of 2 days later, they start thinking about questions they wish they asked. And there's nothing worse than wishing you'd asked and then not knowing how you can do it. So I always say, by all means, follow it up. And what's really nice is some people do kind of email me and say, "Oh, look, this is what I've created," or "I've managed to do this," or "I've managed to do that," which is brilliant. But at the same time, I do get the odd person who follows up. I've had somebody today saying, "Is it possible to download our school font onto Jamboard?" I'm like, "Not at the minute, but you can always ask." So you do get some quite obscure questions, but at least they're asking, and I think that's really important as well. Okay, Dave, go on. You can choose one.
What have we had so far?
We've done virtual, we've done personal growth, we've done skills, and we've done that's it. Yeah, virtual, personal growth, and skills. Yeah.
I'll go with on location, please, Darren.
Yeah, sure. Oh, wrong one. There we go. So, on location, if you're lucky enough to get to do in-person training outside of your own school, obviously there's a lot to bear in mind, whether you're doing that yourself or whether you're doing it for a training partner. So I've done some work for C Learning, I've done some work for apps events, and they will ask you basically how much you want, or they'll say to you, this is how much we'll pay for you to do these certain events. So you've got to factor in things like your travel, your accommodation, if you're teaching, cover at school potentially, and making sure you cover all your costs, but also scope out where things are as well. So, last thing you want to be is like a travel lodge that's slap bang in the centre of town and there's no parking, and you've driven all that way and then you've got to walk miles from the car park. Equally, you want to know how far you are from the school, roughly what the journey time's going to be, and all that kind of thing. So that's where using like Google Maps can be brilliant, because you can put in what time do I need to arrive by, and it will tell you what it's going to be like. 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Okay, I need to leave a little bit earlier or whatever. I try and always get there about an hour beforehand, which some people think I'm mad, but that's where the pre-survey, finding out about the firewalls and devices. Some people as well will give you a choice of room layout. Some will be like, this is how the room's laid out, but others might say you can have it like this, like this. I've had quite a few who've said to me, right, here's options A, B, C, D, E, F. Which one would you prefer? And it's entirely up to you, obviously, but they will set the room up accordingly. And it depends on whether people are working on remote devices or whether they're on a desktop PC and things like that as well. But I always arrive early. Always check everything when I arrive, like where the toilets are, because someone's going to ask you, even though they know you're not from there. Probably they'll ask you anyway, because you're the person that they'll talk to. Secondly, where's lunch? And where's the coffee? That's normally my first question, just so that I'm awake. Again, because people will just want to grab it. But also, I always make sure I've got extra leads, adapters, anything I might need. I try and cover all bases, really. Oh, excuse me. So I try and make sure, where we gone? I jumped out there. Where's it gone? There we go, on location, wouldn't we? That was it. So I always make sure I've got adapters, I've got USB sticks, I've got a couple of pairs of headphones. I normally carry backup speakers, even if they're only small ones. Definitely have a clicker, HDMI cables, all of those kind of things. Just carry them with me, because chances are you'll get there, and if you're in a really nice conference room, probably everything's all set up and it's lovely. But if you're in a classroom, it might have been fine last night when they left, but this morning somebody's been in and borrowed the sound cable or whatever it might be. So always make sure I carry those, and basically just scope everything out and make sure you're fully prepared. And then, like I said earlier with the virtual, once I get there, load up all of the different things I'm going to be using and make sure they work. And then make sure I welcome people as they're coming in, have a bit of background music, that kind of thing. Depending on what the weather's like, it might be kind of relaxing, or it might be like nice and bumpy and all that kind of thing. But try and get some energy into the room as people arrive. If people have got to pick up devices on their way in and all that kind of thing, hopefully there'll be somebody there to help you with that, so you don't have to worry about giving everyone their logins and all that kind of thing. But it does happen, which is why if I'm using my own accounts, I always set it as a generic login. So there'll be student one and the password will be exactly the same for everybody. And then after the event, I'll just clear all those accounts out and delete everything again and start again. Yeah, so that's that side of things, really. How are we doing on time? We'll get in there. Anything burning? Obviously, you've got copies of this, but any burning questions that people have got?
I do. I was wondering if you could share, like, is there a certain structure you have when delivering a training session, or like when you go to plan one, do you like follow a certain structure, or do you, I guess that's a question. If
it's a short sort of 1 hour training session, it will really be depending on the audience. So for example, I do a lot of training with support staff as well as teachers. So if I'm training teachers, as I've been doing with the EdTech Demonstrator program, probably I'll start with a Google Classroom 101. That'll be my first session. And we might touch on other things as we're going through that, because we might get into file sharing and adding and inserting images and things like that. With support staff, I tend to go with simple things like creating a letter template, and then we start to go into more detail, and managing your inbox as well. I think is a massive win that I always kind of get started pretty quickly with. So generally, if it's a day-long training, I'll normally start with Gmail, because I'm going to be sending them emails throughout the day, because I'll be sharing this with you, sharing that with you, posting this, posting that. So they need to understand that. So I would do Gmail first. Then if it's teachers, I'd do Google Classroom. If it's support staff, I might look at Drive and just an orientation of Drive, and then pick it up from there. So just work through. And then I would do, if it's like a 5-hour training, I'd do like 45 minutes on docs, 45 minutes on sheets, 45 minutes on slides, and then that kind of playground of, and these are all the other things there. Is there anything that we want to dive into? So sites is quite useful sometimes as like portals for information. I always do Google Forms as well, just for data collection apart from anything else really. But that ties in nicely with sheets anyway, because if you do sheets before you do forms, then you've already got your responses sheets that people are used to. So when you fill in your form, you go, oh, look, now we're back in a Google Sheet, and it's all back from there. And I always make sure I show people the Explore button, because loads of people don't know anything about it. And I'm terrible at formulas, and Explore saves my life. And most people love it because it's magic. Yeah. Don't be afraid to tell them it's magic as well. Like when they ask how it works, magic. Most people are happy with that because they don't really want to understand how. They if they do ask how and you start to explain it, they wish they'd never asked. So I just say it's just magic. It's easier that way. The other thing I definitely do more than I used to now is cover the aspect of shared drives and the settings within a shared drive in terms of permissions for non-members and sharing beyond the drive and all that kind of thing. Because I think when it was called team drives, I think it pulled the rug out from a lot of people who thought, we're a team, we need a team drive. And everybody got given team drives within the school, and that wasn't what it was about at all. So, okay. I think we're pretty much there on time. So I think we're almost due to go back in at the main call. Any last questions before we finish? Obviously, you're welcome to contact me anytime and follow up if you think there's something else afterwards. Not a problem at all. Okay.
That's great. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys. Cool.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks, Darren.
Brilliant. No problem. See you back in the other one.